Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today I have a story that takes us back a few years to late 2018 or early 2019 when I was driving for Uber. My name is Jasmine or Jazz, and navigating the unpredictable world of being a driver in Detroit wasn't just a side hustle for me, it was a primary source of income. This isn't a story about a massive accident or a huge payout. This is a story about a 5-minute interaction that resulted in the most satisfying ice-cold moment of petty revenge I have ever experienced behind the wheel. It's a tale about dignity in the service industry and the importance of remembering that the person driving your car is a human being, not your personal chauffeur slave. Back then, driving for Uber wasn't just a side hustle for me, it was a primary source of income. And anyone who has ever done late-night pickups, especially in a city like Detroit during the early winter, knows it is a grind. You're dealing with cold temperatures, often confusing one-way streets, drunk people, and the constant nagging anxiety of needing that next fare to make your quota. You spend half your night battling the GPS, which promises you a pickup spot that is inevitably 50 feet away from where the actual human beings are standing, huddled outside some bar or restaurant. Stressful, and it requires endless patience and a thick skin. The night this happened, it was early winter. Not bone-chillingly cold, but certainly cold enough that you didn't want to be standing outside for long. I was doing downtown pickups, always a high-volume area, but also the most challenging. I got a ping for a group of maybe 3 or 4 guys. The app showed they were just a 5-minute drive from my current location, which was perfect. Quick, easy fare to keep the momentum going. I accepted the ride immediately, adjusted the heat in my car, and headed their way. As I drove, I was already processing the pickup in my head. I'm thinking, okay, 4 guys late night downtown. They're probably going home, maybe 5 to 10 miles, maybe a $30 fare. Every driver calculates this instantly. You're assessing the risk versus the reward before you even arrive. I just wanted this to be smooth, fast, and polite. I pulled up to the location the GPS had specified. It was right on a major downtown intersection, a spot that was notorious for being accurate for the building address but terrible for actual curb pickup, mostly because of the traffic and pedestrian congestion. I stopped where I thought the safest, most logical place to load 4 people and their winter gear would be. I looked around, scanning the sidewalk for a cluster of guys who looked like they were waiting for a black sedan. Nothing. This is where the true patience of an Uber driver is tested. You have a 2-minute window and then you have to call. If you call, you lose those 2 minutes. If you wait, they get impatient. It's a lose-lose. I opted to wait about 45 seconds and then I picked up my phone and gave them a ring. I was trying to save them time by proactively finding out their exact location. The phone rang and a man answered. He sounded perfectly polite with a standard American accent. He was the one who booked the ride. "Hi, this is Jasmine, your Uber driver. I'm right at the corner of, let's say, Woodward and Park. Are you guys standing outside?" He confirmed they were outside, somewhere on the sidewalk near the building entrance, but clarified they were a little further down toward a specific awning that was slightly hidden from my vantage point. We had a calm, brief exchange. It was exactly the kind of professional, polite interaction I hoped for. And then everything changed. Just as I was about to pull forward and angle the car toward his updated location, I heard a sharp, demanding voice interrupt the phone call. It wasn't the original guy. It was one of his friends. The phone was clearly passed over, and the tone instantly shifted from calm dialogue to aggressive interrogation. This new voice had a distinct British or perhaps Indian British accent, a strong, sharp cadence. He didn't even say hello. He just launched into me immediately, his voice dripping with an irritating mix of condescension and false politeness. He started with, "Hello, yes. Where are you exactly? Listen, we are freezing out here, we've been waiting far too long." Now let me pause here and explain the reality of that moment. They had been waiting maybe 3 minutes since I accepted the ride, and I had been parked and talking to them for less than 60 seconds. The complaint that I was taking so long was a massive exaggeration and a total insult to the fact that I had navigated downtown traffic in the cold to get to them immediately. I tried to interject to explain that the GPS location was tricky and that I was literally just about to move the car 20 feet to where they were. I tried to reason to sound calm, but he just cut right over me. No, you need to understand the situation. Look, we are standing in the middle of the sidewalk. It is so cold outside. I don't understand why you're making us wait like this. The phrase, "I don't understand why you're making us wait like this," was the part that truly infuriated me. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. It implied that I was sitting there, deliberately wasting their time, taking some sick pleasure in letting them freeze. It erased all the work I had done, the driving, the calling, the maneuvering, and reduced me to a faceless servant who was failing them. The arrogance in his voice, the condescending lilt, it was like he was talking down to a child who had failed a simple instruction. He barely gave me a chance to respond. He was running his mouth, just complaining and demanding, demonstrating an utter inability to listen to a professional trying to help him. It wasn't about the cold. It was about his assumed sense of entitlement. He clearly felt that because he was paying for the ride, he was entitled to treat the driver as less than human, deserving of a rude lecture. I was instantly furious. 12 hours of driving, dealing with traffic, bad navigation, and low fares, and this guy who had been waiting for 3 minutes felt he had the right to lecture me about my efficiency. That moment crystallized every frustrating, disrespectful interaction I had ever had in the service industry. I was tired, I was cold, and I was done with being treated like garbage for $5. I thought, you know what? You're going to be cold. You are going to be waiting far too long. But it's not going to be because of the GPS or the traffic. It's going to be because you can't manage a civil tone on the phone. In that instant, my professionalism evaporated, replaced by a deep, unwavering resolve. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the principle. It was about teaching this prick a lesson in basic human respect. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't even sign off. I just lifted my thumb off the end call button and hung up on him mid-sentence. I immediately went into the Uber app, found the ride details, and canceled the pickup. The reason I selected? Something neutral like rider not at location or communication issue. I didn't care. Then I put the car in drive, signaled, and pulled out of the parking spot. I didn't look back, but as I drove away from the area, I imagined the scene I had just created. I pictured the rude guy, the phone suddenly silenced, looking at the screen, probably trying to call me back immediately, wondering what was wrong. I pictured him shouting, "What happened? Why did she hang up?" Then I pictured the moment the Uber app updated, flashing the devastating red text, "Ride cancelled." I imagined him looking around the cold, dark sidewalk, realizing his lecture had earned him not a fast ride, but a minimum 5 to 10 minute delay. They would have to reopen the app, re-request a ride, and wait for a brand new driver to navigate the chaotic downtown area. And suddenly, those initial 3 minutes of waiting wouldn't seem so long anymore. My car was warm, my hands were warm, and my heart was full of a righteous, petty satisfaction. The sheer thought of him having to stand there in the early winter cold, realizing that his own bad attitude was the direct cause of his inconvenience, was pure gold. That simple act of hanging up and canceling was the ultimate assertion of dignity. I had demonstrated that while they may pay for the ride, they do not pay for my time, my patience, or my respect. And if they couldn't offer the latter, they weren't getting the former. I drove on to my next passenger, a nice young woman who needed a lift a few suburbs over. The fare was fine, the conversation was pleasant, and the entire interaction was a calm contrast to the brief, toxic drama I had just escaped. But the memory of that cancellation stayed with me. It was a reminder that in the service economy, where the dynamic is inherently tilted in favor of the customer, the power of refusal is the ultimate tool. As drivers, we are often treated as invisible infrastructure, mere extensions of the app rather than people with lives, schedules, and feelings. This man thought he could rush me, lecture me, and generally treat me with contempt simply because he was paying a fare. I used the power afforded to me by the platform, the ability to cancel, to teach him a fundamental lesson. Respect is a prerequisite for service. I've thought a lot about that night over the years, especially as I've moved on from driving Uber. Did I cost myself a small fare? Yes. Did I potentially inconvenience the other two guys who were polite? Maybe. But the truth is, sometimes the emotional and professional cost of enduring disrespect far outweighs the financial benefit of the job. That moment was a stand for myself, and honestly, a stand for every service worker who has ever had to endure a customer's condescension just to earn a few dollars. The memory of the cold air and his demanding voice, contrasted with the warmth of my car as I drove away, is a reminder that you have to set boundaries. You have to value yourself enough to walk, or in this case drive, away from disrespect. I hope he did freeze his butt off for an extra 20 minutes, and I truly hope that the next time he called an Uber, he thought twice before snatching the phone and demanding instant service from a stranger. The cost of a warm ride is not just the fare, it's the cost of basic civility. And some people just can't afford it. This experience really drove home a larger point about the gig economy and service work in general. The entire structure is designed to make the worker feel disposable. We're rated, tracked, and disposable. This man felt safe being rude because he assumed I needed his money more than I needed my dignity. But that night I proved him wrong. I demonstrated that the person behind the wheel has agency, has a veto, and can decide instantly that the transaction is simply not worth the disrespect. The whole encounter lasted maybe 90 seconds, from the moment he grabbed the phone to the moment I hit the cancel button. But those 90 seconds were packed with every instance of being talked down to, every time I was rushed, and every moment I felt invisible. It was an accumulation of frustration that culminated in a single, decisive action. And that action, that simple act of refusal, was more satisfying than any surge pricing bonus I ever earned. I often wonder what their conversation was like after the app canceled. Did the polite friend blame the rude one? Did the rude guy get even angrier, blaming the incompetent driver and not his own mouth? I imagine it was a chaotic little scene, a small dose of karma delivered right to the curb. And I was the one who got to drive off into the night, feeling absolutely light and victorious. So, to anyone who works in the service industry, whether you're driving, waiting tables, or working retail, please know that your dignity is not part of the transaction. The moment someone treats you as less than human, you have the right to disengage, disserve, and walk away. Sometimes the best service you can provide is a lesson in manners. Jasmine leans toward the camera, her expression satisfied but thoughtful. If you've ever had to assert your dignity by walking away from a rude customer, I want to hear your story. Let me know in the comments what lesson you taught someone when they forgot that you were a human being. And if you loved this tale of petty revenge and standing up for yourself, please hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me keep sharing these real-life moments of reclaiming respect. Thanks for watching.